I'm your host, Scott Norton, and welcome to At Large. On this show, I talk to world-class creatives who use business to bring their ideas to life. We'll hear about their creative practices, their most interesting stories, and the lessons that'll inspire you the way that they've inspired me.
Mike Tyson said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's how I feel every time I try and write something. You don't really realize how hard writing is until you actually sit down and try and do it. Thomas Kemeny has made a career writing for advertising, one of the most challenging written mediums. You need the copy to sell, but it can't be salesy. You got to make people smile, but you can't come off as trying to be funny. The shorter the better, but make sure to pack in all the features and benefits. Got it? Well, for people who have practiced this all their life like Thomas, writing for advertising is an art, a science, and a business. And for the rest of us to learn, Thomas has written one of the very few books on how to write advertising copy. The book is called Junior, and today we'll talk about the many lessons he shares in this book. I highly recommend picking up a copy of Junior, since even if you don't write for advertising specifically, this book will help you generate ideas and make anything you write more effective. But before we get to our esteemed guest, Thomas Kemeny, I want to take an opportunity to take some questions from the audience myself. So in the first part of this episode, you'll hear from me, and in the second part, you'll hear Thomas and I together. Please enjoy the show. So we're going to try something new on At Large, where we take questions from the audience. I put out a tweet inviting people to ask some questions, and I got a response back. And so we're going to answer questions today from Matt Ting on Twitter. Shout out Matt Ting for your curiosity. So Matt asked, what is the most common trait you see in successful creatives? And the common trait that I see in successful creatives is what I'll call being connected to the source. Now, that kind of sounds mystical, and it is mystical, but what does that mean? I think creatives are tapped into something greater than themselves, and this creative work almost flows through them. And I think there are three elements that I notice when someone's really connected to the source. One is people being true to themselves. Creatives are, as a true artist, working almost to create these diary entries and works that are true to them and in a way for them and for their legacy. Two is creatives have a certain obsession. They have an obsession with the work itself, not just getting it done, but actually polishing it and what the experience of that work product is like. And then third is, I think people connected to the source, they're obsessed with learning. It's not really just about this is how you do it, or they have a technique that they apply over and over again to a creative practice, but it's about let's do something new and let's find the edges of something and let's experiment and not being afraid. And in fact, embracing the fact that when you try new creative things, you learn from that process. And then finally, Matt asks, do you think your decision to pursue VC after your exit is still the right choice for you? And I would say in short, yes. Like there's this parable of the fox and the hedgehog. A hedgehog is someone that kind of puts their head down and loves working on one problem until they perfect it, throughout their entire career. A lot of great entrepreneurs are hedgehogs. A lot of great, engineers and artists are hedgehogs. But the foxes, they're a little bit more social. They're a little bit more distractible. They're more like the networkers. And I'm definitely a fox, not a hedgehog. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily a pure VC. VC in itself as kind of a pure business is pretty narrow. Raise a fund, run a fund, put minority investments in that fund, and it's really about picking more so than stewardship. And for me, the truth is that there's a lot of ways to support entrepreneurs and a lot of ways to learn. And VC is great for a lot of things, but it's more about fundraising and picking than it is about the building process and the partnership process with founders, as much as other VCs would like to romanticize it. So in general, I think that investors are kind of overrated in the overall
story of building companies. And I also, I need to scratch a creative itch, which is why I have this show. And that's, not really right down the fairway for a VC. So I'd be lying if I didn't go to bed every night thinking and wishing that I was chipping away at some bigger monolith. Maybe one of those new monoliths will come my way. Maybe it'll be this show. But Matt, thank you very much for your questions. And hope these were shining a light on them. And with that, let's hear from our guest, Thomas Kemeny. Well, Thomas, it's great to have you here today.
Great to be here, although not there.
Yes, we are each alone together on the interwebs.
And we've met in the digital universe, but yeah, I'm in Austin, Texas. Is where I live at the moment.
Wonderful. Well, you have written one of my favorite books, and it is, I would say, the de facto book on copywriting, and it's called Junior. You are no longer a junior. You were once a junior. Can you tell us the story of how you discovered advertising and writing as a career?
Yeah, I'll tell you. And it actually kind of ties back to the book in the end, which is interesting. So I actually was starting off I was about to go to college. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was thinking something in the arts. I kind of always had a little bit of a creative spirit, but I always had this little bit of a business brain, always trying to solve problems and always just thought businesses and companies were interesting. And then the summer before I started college, my brother handed me this book. It was called Hey Whipple Squeeze This. It was written by Luke Sullivan. And it was this book that talked about advertising and advertising creativity and copywriters and art directors and this whole field that I didn't know existed. I didn't know, hey, there's people whose job it is to come up with commercials and, make print ads and all these different things. And it was just interesting where it was this world where these creativity and business kind of merged together in this really natural way. So I switched my major and I started studying advertising. And then what's interesting is after I came out with the book, I sent a copy to Luke Sullivan. And I half expected him to be like, fuck this guy, you're a piece of crap. Like, go to hell, you're not me, man. And it was the exact opposite. He was so generous, so kind. He said, this is wonderful. And he actually started using it in his classes. And then he said, hey, can you come do a talk with my class? I did a talk with his class. And he sent me this email and he said, my class thinks it's cool that I know you. So I told him to fail the entire class because they had it backwards. They're obviously idiots. They don't know what they're doing. And then what's really strange is now it's the sixth edition of his book. And he quotes my book in it. So it's this weird snake eating its own tail moment now where he quotes me in his book, which is the book that got me to start in advertising.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. So you've earned yourself a special place in the Valhalla of advertising, which is the book that inspired you to get into it.
That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is amazing. Yeah. So it's a weird timeline loop.
Your craft is writing, and specifically copywriting, right? Which is a lot of writing for advertising. In some ways it's writing to persuade, writing to win hearts and minds. And I'm curious, how do you warm up creatively? Do you have any favorite creative warm-ups that you do that you could teach me and teach the listeners?
I just have this general theory on just creativity and writing, especially where the brain it doesn't want to work. Like there's sort of like thinking burns calories. Your brain doesn't want to do it. You give it or your brain gives you one answer to a problem and it says, there, we're done. Good. Time to go home. And every moment beyond that, what creativity really is tricking your brain into thinking you have not solved the problem yet. Keep going. And it's sort of when you go deeper and you find these ways to kind of restart your brain to keep thinking more, that you come up with these breakthrough ideas that actually solve these problems that are really complex. So I just like to throw weird wrenches at my brain to make it think it's not done with the job. So I give it new tasks. I say, hey, yeah, good job, but we can't use the letter L. Or what's the worst possible answer you could give to this brief? What's the worst thing you could think of? Different things. Like sometimes I'll just feed it stuff like, okay, what if this was for a car, or what if this was done for a heavy metal band, or what was just all these sort of things that you can throw at yourself to make your brain think, okay, all right, new problem to solve. Okay, let me solve that problem. Let me solve that problem. Let me solve that problem. So that's sort of like how I like to warm up my brain, is just sort of, I think there's a thinking of you have too many limitations, and a lot of times it's you don't have enough limitations, and that's what keeps your brain from sort of going and going and going.
Interesting. Because a lot of we all kind of know how to write, right? I mean, we spend time in traditional education learning how to write, and we write essays and we fill pages. But most of the writing that we actually produce, it's not effective. It doesn't entertain. It's not really immediate. And you, with the job of a copywriter, have to create writing that sells. You have to write a copy that wins hearts and minds. And I think that most people, when they're writing, they approach it like a logical, linear process. And in fact, in the traditional educational instruction, logic and writing almost go together conceptually, right? Like you start with the summary, and then you have the 3 points that you're going to make, and then you talk about those 3 points, and then you summarize, right? And it's this Aristotelian exercise, or maybe Platonic exercise in logic. But in your book, you talk about something which is actually quite the opposite of that, a totally nonlinear and illogical process related to what you were just describing as these limitations, where if you're writing something for a project, you'll basically write everything that obviously comes to mind, and then start tapping into your subconscious mind. So could you talk a little bit about that process?
I mean, one thing I'd like to do is I call it like writing till you go stupid, and just write and write and write, no pauses, no breaks, just kind of get stuff on the paper. It's almost, you have to just get material to start working from. You need to start with the line having a purpose, because I guess that's another sort of trap that people fall into, is they start thinking of words as, oh, I need 58 words, and that's copywriting, and that's not, because you have to use words as a problem-solving tool. My partner and I always joke about, oh, that's not a load-bearing idea. That's one thing we always say. It's like, that's not a load-bearing idea, where if you change one word of it and the entire thing collapses, there's probably not an idea underneath it. Yes, once you have that idea, you can craft those words exactly right, and that's a whole magic unto itself. But as long as, if you're not a professional copywriter, you want to be a better writer in general. It's just making sure you have ideas underneath what you're saying, because nothing said well is still nothing.
And how do you come up with those big ideas?
There's it's this magical process I like to call swearing and staring. It's sort of like, I wish there was some amazing, the end result is interesting. I think it's like if I asked a musician, like, how do you come up with a song? They'd probably come up with some story or whatever, but most likely they just sit there and like, oh, I just kind of hit keys until something sounds good. And it's sort of the same with writing, where you just sort of start doing things, consuming all information. I will read absolutely anything, whether it's high-minded or garbage. I love Reddit. Reddit's fantastic. There's just the way people write is so natural and also very sophisticated. Good literature is great to read. Bad literature is great to read. Kind of anything. And just sort of consume information. You sort of breathe it all in, and then you just put it out and you start applying it to, okay, what does that mean for this product or brand or this story, or what am I trying to say, or what are sort of insights on it? What are the edges of it? What sort of territory does this live in? And that's sort of one way to start going. You can also go just sort of a very functional way as well. You can say, like, what's happening in culture? What does our product do? Who is our audience? How do those three things live together? Somewhere in that triangle, you start digging, you'll find something eventually.
Can you tell me a story about a breakthrough that was maybe a particularly difficult challenge that you were handed, by a client to crack and find a way in with words that would win people's hearts?
Yeah, I'll give a good example. So we were working on Oscar Health Insurance, and they'd actually had a first campaign. It had like a quirky tone. They were, it was lines like, insurance shouldn't be brain surgery. And it's like, oh, because it's in health insurance. It was just sort of, it was interesting. They were willing to be playful, which was great. That's already kind of rare. But there was no meaning underneath it. And so we took some of those lines and we're like, well, what are some insights in the world around how people treat their health, how people think about health that we could then re-encode into that fun tone. So we had one line that was, it was ask a doctor instead of randos on the internet. And if you sort of take that line apart, it started off with, well, what are some insights around how people think about their health? And it's, you don't think about it until you're sick, and then you go to Google and you look it up, and Dr. Google tells you you have leukemia.
Yes.
100% of the time. There's no other diseases other than leukemia. That's how that works. And then you have all of these sort of random people who have, oh, you should, drink maple syrup and then you'll be cured. Like that's sort of what you get when you go on the internet. And that was the reality. That's how people, so that was the insight, was people are going to the internet and asking random people for information instead of doctors. So this health insurance, you could actually talk to a real doctor. So that was our solve. That was where we met product, met culture, and met our audience, and we were able to make a line. And then yes, we could have said talk to a doctor instead of looking it up on the internet, which also would work, is also a correct line, is also not a bad line. But then to make it great, we're like, well, randos is the word that people on the internet would use to talk about people on the internet. So we use the word randos, and suddenly this line just has so much life to it, gets so much more interesting by bringing a truthful insight, putting a little bit of a voice onto it, and presenting that out.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about Reddit as a place where people write with so much immediacy and verve, and that is the epicenter of randos on the internet. I think there's a lot to learn about how people write like that, because so much great copywriting, it doesn't actually adhere to the elements of style, right? I mean, famously, this line, think different, is grammatically incorrect. Think differently would be the grammatically correct way to say it. So I think embracing that human tone takes guts, and it's crucial.
It was interesting too with that campaign where there was another line. It was the doctor will see you now, but it been between the "we'll see you" and the "now." We had a guy taking a photo down his pants. This is all illustrated. It wasn't photos, but it was an illustration of somebody taking a photo down their pants of the doctor will see you now, and it was about how you could get take a photo and send it to a doctor to get a diagnosis, and that was sort of unique to them as well.
Nice wordplay that worked with the layout and worked with the graphics. So let's flash back to 10 years ago. That was when we first met. You were working at Mother New York, the agency, which had just invested in and partnered with Sir Kensington's. And we came to you as an agency with a brief and a challenge. And that's that we wanted to put Sir Kensington's on the map. We had ketchup and we had recently come out with mayonnaise. And we were relatively unknown. We wanted to reach consumers and eaters. We wanted to reach restaurants because we sold into restaurants. And we had basically no money to put a campaign together. I think, we had $50,000 or $75,000 that we could muster, whereas, most national campaigns for real awareness are, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in media alone. How did you approach that challenge, and what was the solution that you came up with?
Yeah, and if I remember, it was getting restaurants interested, getting the press interested, and getting consumers interested, which is sort of this very difficult needle to thread. And we had this thought of Sir Kensington's already had this sort of interesting personality. It was this kind of, it had this charming little guy in a top hat on the packaging. So we already knew that we wanted to do something a little bit cheeky, a little bit interesting, and sort of a little scholarly, because this is Sir Kensington. So we were, well, what can we do? And we had this idea of gathering 100 French fries from around New York, from different restaurants, and having them displayed like these beautiful art objects in a gallery, and talking about the sort of shared history of ketchup and the French fry, and where these two things come together. Everybody loves French fries. It's a very easy thing to talk about, but it's something that nobody had really done much to talk about, even though you could go into a Greek restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, American restaurant, you could get French fries in New York. And we had a little thing underneath each French fry of the provenance of the restaurant that it came from, how they prepared it, which every restaurant did it slightly differently. So even though it's this very common thing, everyone approaches slightly differently. And then people could come in and tour the 100 different French fries from all these restaurants in New York. And it got a lot of attention. It got a lot of attention from mainstream publications, New York Times. It was picked up in non-English speaking news shows as well, which we were watching and having to get translated. A lot of some celebrities came by, I believe, as well. So it was, so it got all of that attention, and we sort of had this way of introducing ourselves to these restaurants, which was already a great start, even before the event opened. Then the event opened, and all of these people started coming through, and we could really tell this full story of French fries and ketchup, and where the two came together in this sort of grand story set in New York.
And we had an amazing kind of opening ceremony party for it, and we followed, I think, your instructions of having 3 key ingredients for a great event. What are those 3 key ingredients?
Yeah, it's this is the secret to all experiential and event kind of things. You need good food, something to drink, booze, so refreshments need to be good, music, and something to take a photo of. And that's it. This will apply to weddings, or will apply to huge events. It's all the same thing. Those are the 3 key elements to any amazing event.
And we also worked together about a year later, because I came to you with another challenge, which is that we were starting to put pen to paper on what Sir Kensington stood for, what was our mission and our values, because we felt like we were a mission and values driven company. But then people would say, okay, well, what are your values and what is your mission? I didn't actually have an answer for them. And so I remember, I polled our team, and I got a ton of feedback about why people showed up to work and what we stood for and what was the change that we were trying to make. And I more or less kind of dumped it on you. And you were able to turn that into some turns of phrase that then ended up sticking with us. So could you tell us about that process and how you reached an answer there?
That was a really very interesting project for me to work on. I think it's the first time I'd stepped that deep into a company, I guess, where I was, okay, well, how do we define the pillars? How do we distill an entire organization down into a few words? You'll do it with a campaign or something like that. So this was definitely a big challenge. But at the same time, one, you just gave me a lot of material. You gave me so much stuff to work with, and I read through all of it and could research all of it. And we just had so many discussions as well. And we'd worked on the brand also, so I had some familiarity with what would be true and what wouldn't be true. And then it all started off with a little instigation of you wanted to be the number one condiment company in America or something like that.
Yeah, number one, the leading natural condiment brand, I think.
Yeah, leading natural condiment brand. And the next slide was, what do people expect of the leading natural condiment brand? Next slide, nothing. And that was the big unlock, is nobody thinks of these things. They're overlooked. And when we look back, it was true of the French fries. People overlook French fries, even though you can get them all in these restaurants. It's true of the ketchup. And that was sort of the big unlock, was this is an overlooked category, and just generally things in food are overlooked. Nobody had an expectation of it. And so our role, our mission as the company was to, we sort of workshopped together on this over a bunch of Thai food, is to bring charm and integrity to the ordinary and overlooked in food. And that just really distilled down everything that we had done with Sir Kensington's, but I think also became something that you could point to and say, okay, are we going to start making waffles. No, waffles aren't overlooked enough, so we're probably not going to do waffles. But then you could say, oh well, mayonnaise is over. I mean, that's not what I think you'd already had mayonnaise at that point.
Yeah.
But you say, okay, mayonnaise, we could do mayonnaise. That's overlooked. And what kind of, focusing on French fries? Do we do more stuff around French fries? Well, yeah, French fries continue to be overlooked. Would you do pizza? Probably not. Pizza's not overlooked. Pizza's all over social media.
In the spotlight.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we haven't done hot sauce, because there's so many great hot sauces out there, and it's already at the center of, so many cultural conversations.
Yeah.
So you did a great job distilling that company mission into what was also a product strategy.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so interesting about, I think people can think about copywriting as, oh, this is a thing that I can put on my social media post, or, oh, this is a thing I can put on a billboard. But great copywriting, load-bearing copywriting, is really taking something that big and being able to distill it down into something that's just very powerful and very useful as well.
Words that really cut through and stick with people. Idea viruses, in a way. So much writing that's done commercially, like especially advertising, but so much external creative work and writing that's done by companies is writing to persuade. And in your book, Junior, you have lots of different exercises and lots of different concepts, but you don't ever specifically talk about persuasion and how to persuade, which is, I think, interesting for an advertising copywriting book. But could you tell me, what are the tenets if you're looking to persuade something or persuade someone? How do you approach that? What arrows do you have in your quiver? What's the mechanism of persuasion that one can have with writing?
There's no magical dozen words that if you use these 10 words or dozen words, everyone will suddenly become mindless buying machines, despite what people on social media will try and tell you as they sell you their programs. There isn't a trick. There isn't a secret necessarily, because really what it comes down to, it's about making human connections. And if you go back to all the way back, we're going back to the caveman ages, and what does it mean to have a brand? And really, it's a little bit of trust. This is a thing that I'm a human. This is what I stand for, and this is what I'm going to market. So you know that this came from me, and if I trust you, I'm going to buy that product. And it's gotten a lot more complicated than that. I mean, we live in United States is arguably the most sophisticated capitalism machine of all time. So it's more sophisticated now than me just telling you this is my product and it's not going to poison you or whatever. But it's still the same premise. It's just been built on generation to generation. So yeah, I think it's really, so persuasion is really about, it's not like tricking somebody into buying your product. It's finding how what you make connects with who they are and what they're about. And if that doesn't connect, it's, you can maybe fake it for a little bit, and then eventually everyone finds out and it all falls apart.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's a focus on human connection that's more important than a focus on logical persuasion.
Yeah, I think we love to think of ourselves as logical beings, and it's not really the case. I think time and again, it's been proven that that's not the case with humans, and is maybe one of the reasons why we don't have to be so worried about AI just yet, because it's still very logical. Here's the logical thing that should come next, and once our brains register, okay, this is the logical progression, we just start ignoring it. Like, okay, this has been manufactured. This isn't authentic anymore.
Right. Yeah. You in particular, you love verbal surprises. I think last time we were hanging out, you were playing a song for me that you play for your kid that specifically doesn't rhyme. So it sets up everything for a rhyme, and then it just flips that assumption on its head and puts a random word in there. And you seem more delighted about that than I can imagine a kid being.
This song might be more about me, but yeah, it's a song without a rhyme, and yeah, every verse kind of tees up the rhyme and then doesn't give it to you, and it's just delightful. It's that surprise is just very tickles me. But yes, my 5-year-old daughter was also cracking up at it.
Yeah, it's kind of like wabi sabi. It's like things that don't
don't quite fit together, right? Where you can't quite look away, or you need to do a double take and inspect, the difference or the weirdness.
Yeah, it's like the perfectly smooth surface. Everything just slides off of it, and that's how our brains are. It's just that's too correct, and it just slides right off. But if there's like a little something, a little crack, a little chip, a little something's not quite right, it just wait. What was that? I need to register what happened there. And that's kind of what happens in our brains. And yeah, I love that just in the world in general, but I think is absolutely crucial for advertising that needs to stand out. People are just flooded. Like I said, we're the greatest capitalist machine ever. We're just bombarded with competition of our attention, and doing something interesting and fun and a little playful just catches people.
Yeah. So let's talk about some tools that people can use in their own life for writing, for copywriting, for just writing in general. I understand that you've got a few. They're not necessarily like things you should do or things you shouldn't do, but they're just tools that can be used. And I'm hoping you can walk us through some of those writing tools, and maybe we can do some exercises together that you can lead us in.
Okay, there's the right way to do things, which is I've sat down, I had the time, I thought of insights, I considered the world around me, and I wrote these beautiful insights, and I turned those beautiful insights into these incredible ideas, and I just crafted them. But sometimes the deadline's in a day, and you got to get something up on the social media today, and it's got to be good, and it's got to be good enough. And this is what we're going to do now. Also, these are going to be the tricks that if you hire somebody who's not good, they're going to try and do these things. And I'm going to ruin all of their careers right now in the next few minutes. That's what we're going to do here.
Because you're going to expose the cheap tricks of advertising.
I'm exposing all the cheap tricks. Yeah. Great. So the first one we're going to do, I call it the duck, duck, goose. So this is trick number one. And with this one, we talked about hot sauce. Let's start with hot sauce.
Ooh, great.
We're going to do this for hot sauce. I'll explain what the premise is, and then we're going to do a few, and we'll see how quickly we can do them. So it's two things and a twist. Sometimes people say it's three things and a twist. So it would be like for a car, it could be fast, cheap. It'll change the way you travel forever. For a solar panel, it could be saves power, saves the planet, savings. So it's kind of like you do two things, then you give it a little twist, or you go two short things, you go very like kind of long-winded. It's like playfully long-winded.
Kind of like the setup of a joke, how you have a beginning part of the joke that sets up the assumption, and then a punchline that defies that assumption.
Yeah, that's it. So let's do some for a hot sauce real quick.
All right. Let me brainstorm a few, and then we can read them.
Sounds good.
Okay, I've got a few.
All right, let's hear what you got.
Great for hombres, great for amigas, great on vegan carnitas.
Nice.
And more fun, more flavor, more water, please.
Nice.
What you got?
I have some sort of in that same realm. Spicy, not too spicy. Oh wait, there it is.
That's good. That's a different format because that's kind of a buildup.
Yeah, and then I have it's sort of similar. It's spicy, tasty. Oh no, my mouth is on fire.
Oh, that's good. Should we do another category, or you want to teach us another trick?
But
this one is called duck, duck, goose, right?
Duck, duck, goose. Yes,
so
with all of these,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, with all of these, once you know about them, you'll start seeing them out in the world. And I shouldn't say these can't be done well; they can be done well as well. But you'll see them sort of done quite often. They're sort of standard formulas.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had duck, duck, goose. That was number one. Number two is just paradoxes. So this is big/small, good and evil. This would be like big power, small price tag, or fast so you can slow down, or so good it's awfully good. Yeah, so like these kind of like plays. That last one maybe goes a little bit more interesting, but it's sort of these high, low, small, big, green, yellow, like, or green, red. Like that's just sort of playing off angel, devil, all these things. It's sort of anytime that's sort of these opposites. And let's see, the category for this product that we'll do. This is going to be, I'm going to go with your all-time favorite product, non-alcoholic beer.
Ooh, non-alcoholic beer. All right, I have a few, but I don't know if they comply. But it's such a great forcing function to just start writing.
Yeah.
And you get all this material. All right.
Yeah.
Have friends over without the hangover.
Nice.
A great beer with great responsibility. It's a little bit off, but because of the non-alcohol thing. A beer for a hero, a beer with zero. And then it reminded me of the non-alcoholic aperitif Gia has a great line, which is all of the spirit with none of the booze.
Yeah.
Which is a nice counterpoint there.
Yep.
What do you got?
That's a great example of, now that you say it, you start seeing it. So this is going to be the obvious one.
Okay.
All beer, no hangover.
Oh, that's good.
Simple. That's
even
the
be
one
all
the client
party,
would buy.
no hangover.
All party, no hangover. Yeah. This one's not great, but ice cold, no overheating.
Interesting.
Quite makes sense. Like, I don't know. Look,
Yeah.
they're not all going to be gems. That's
Right,
the other part of advertising.
Sure. Yeah.
And in my book, I have a thing where I say, like, I want a giant poster that says "Make mistakes." I think there's some truth to that too. Like, that's the other thing is, you will have if you're doing 100 headlines, man, 99 of them better be terrible.
Yes.
That's just how it's going to be. All right, some other ones. Smooth taste, no rough morning.
Ooh, that's
Smooth
good.
rough.
That's very good.
And this is goes down smooth, stays down smooth.
Oh, I like that. That's a gold star right there. Yeah, even though it does prompt a visual of some, vomitous aftermath of a traditional beer. Okay, any more tricks?
Yeah, we got a few more.
Okay, sweet.
This one's one that I love. This is flipping a saying. So you find a famous idiom and you twist a word or two. And this is, I think, in the hierarchy of cheap tricks, I think is a better thing, because then at least your idioms tap into culture already. So there's already like a foot in culture. So it's slightly better than just like wordplay. Yeah. But they're also a bit of kind of a cheap trick, but they can be great. And one of my all-time favorite lines is for The Economist, and it's never make the same mistake once.
That's good.
It's just a beautiful play on that.
They have some great lines. Great minds like a think. And I never read The Economist. Management trainee, age 58.
Yeah, they have so many great ones. Lose the ability to slip out of meetings unnoticed is my other favorite.
Lose the ability to slip out of meetings unnoticed.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
that reminds me of a viral tweet that says, I accidentally became important at work and it's ruining in my life.
So there you go. So that has an insight to it as well.
Oh,
so
for
that's
sure.
kind of, and obviously the Economist lines are fantastic. So they're the best possible versions of this. They probably wrote 100 of those to get to the ones that they got to. But we'll do one here. We'll do this will be for a natural deodorant.
Okay. Familiar in that category.
Smells like eucalyptus. We're gonna say.
One of my favorites.
Eucalyptus smelling natural deodorant. And I will drop in some idioms around smell into our chat here so you can see them.
Ooh, yeah.
And I'll read, these are just idioms around smells. And I'll read them out loud so everyone can play along if they want.
Okay, great.
Something smells fishy is an idiom. Wake up and smell the coffee is an idiom. Come up smelling like roses is an idiom. Smell a rat. Smell blood, or smell blood in the water. The sweet smell of success. Stink to high heaven. Follow your nose. Stick your nose where it doesn't belong, under one's nose.
Oh, that's great fodder.
Yeah, and if you're looking for uses of AI is fantastic at giving you the idioms. It will do a terrible job of turning them into ads, but you can get the idioms at least to start.
Great. So we start with these and then we twist them to serve this natural deodorant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
This is much harder.
Interesting. I think because this is what I do so often at work, where just writing in general. This is actually easier for me sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Hit me with what you got.
Really playful with the first one. The sweet smell of success if you're a eucalyptus tree.
That's good.
Something smells like it doesn't smell. And switch to a natural deodorant right under everyone's nose.
Oh, that's a great one. I have follow your nose, end up in nature.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a fun one. I could see that having a whole sort of visual piece to it as well.
I mean, that's a structure of a campaign where every fragrance of that deodorant line has a different visual signature, right? So someone's like in a pond, someone's like in eucalyptus grove, someone's in like with a rose bush. Yeah, that you could do something with that.
So this is another common one that you'll see out in the world, where it'll be, let me just make one up real quick. Let's say, I guess if we were going for the hot sauce, it would be like, hot sauce is too interesting of a product. If it was for a fast car, it would be, 1,000 horsepower, period. Buckle up, cheetahs. Like that would be an example, or like, just anything where it's kind of, you say the absolute most straightforward product fact that you have to say, put a period, and then have a line that's barely connected, maybe sort of connected, but is the funny line that pays it off, that is sort of, could be anything at that point because you've sort of forced in your idea.
Great.
And maybe we'll do a few for designer fluorescent light bulbs. Let's do that.
Ooh, designer fluorescent light bulbs. Okay.
Or just fluorescent, nice fluorescent light bulbs. I should say what the product line is, so then we can do.
If you got a product line, give it to us.
Yeah, let's go with brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs.
I've got a few.
All right, hit me. What you got?
One idea that doesn't follow the structure that just came to me as like an art and copy idea for this product is, and George said, "Let there be light."
Nice.
I've got brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs. Now that's a bright idea.
Yep.
Brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs. So beautiful you'll shed a tear switching them off.
There you go.
Or here's another one. Brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs, giving the sun a run for its money.
Yeah, there you go. I have something like that too. Yeah. I've got brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs. Mansion not included.
Ooh, that's good.
Brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs. You'll flick them on and off in joy. Brilliant fluorescent light in 5 bulbs. Sorry, the sun.
Make the sun jealous. This could be another one.
Yeah, make the sun jealous. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or now outshine the sun. Great. Well, thank you for those. So let's talk a little bit about your book. So just to give people a sample of what this book is like, I'm going to read one of my favorite excerpts from it.
Awesome.
Thomas writes in a section called Be Smart. There's a lesson I learned from a creative director early in my career that has served me well. Don't use the word cool to describe an idea. Use the word smart instead. This semantic switch can have a huge effect. Why? Because when you tell a client an idea is cool, a voice in their head answers, you know what would be cool? If you move some fucking product. And so the book is written in this very immediate tone. It's a quick read and it's a super fun read. Tell us about who is this book for and what does it teach?
It's written for creatives in their first few years of advertising, but it's applicable to anyone who's willing to purchase it. It's funny because I did start writing it because I wanted to talk to myself. I actually started it when I was young and working in advertising my first few years. And I started asking myself these questions and trying to answer them. And as I continued my career, I got better at answering those questions. And that became this body of this book. But I found that a lot of people who I didn't think would buy it have gotten interested in it because we just write so much as a culture now. It's in everything. And we write like copywriters, where we have to take a lot of information and condense it down really sharply and in interesting ways. And that's just how everything from, we talked about Reddit and those things, but also like dating apps. I mean, those are headlines. That's what you're doing. Who am I as a human being?
People pay consultants for those headlines. And now they got AI come up with those headlines as an opening.
Absolutely.
Pickup lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, how do you do something that's, and like we said before, it's that human connection. Who am I? What's the thing I want to say? And what's the most condensed way I can say it? Words that don't have meaning. So there'll be sentences that will just rhyme, or there's alliteration, but there's no meaning underneath it. Is very common. So
specifically for copywriting,
specific for any communication. I think people like to write without putting meaning under it. They just want to have words.
Yes.
And I think, one of the things for me, I actually find it quite hard to do interviews because I'm so precise with my words in a written format in a way that's very hard to do on the fly.
Yes.
And, with my friends, they'll say like, I don't turn it off. This is how I'll sit there quietly for 5 minutes and then I'll say something that's like, oh, I've condensed our conversation into a sentence, It's just sort of how I am. I think it's like the words are wasted. They don't have value to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also think that especially, not everyone writes for copy and copywriting, but there's way too much corporate speak, and don't be afraid to say it simple. Great leaders, even in a company context, say it simple. And it goes back to exactly what you're saying is like, don't write words without meaning. If you can say it simple, it actually comes off as a sign of intelligence rather than overcomplicating it and putting just words out there to sound smart, which I'm guilty of for sure. So let's move into our at large and off the cuff, our quick fire round, if I can pepper you some questions. So the first one I ask everyone is, are you glad social media exists, or do you wish it never existed?
I'm glad it exists. I wish it was maybe regulated or monitored a bit more. Like there's this funny thing with when ads used to be sold by time, all the market research showed that the longer a commercial is, the more successful it is. And now that it's sold by placement, the shorter it is that it's been shown, the more effective it is. And that just feels a little suspect to me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it definitely serves the ad salespeople. If you spend any time in Meta's advertising, reporting studio, their number one suggestion is you should increase your ad budget if you want to see more results. It's like, oh, thanks, Meta. Like, what a great idea. Here, just take my wallet and my brain. Everyone's a critic. You recently-ish moved to Austin. How do you rate it?
It's hard moving from New York to anywhere because New York is a magical wonderland in some ways. But also there's a lot to like here. It's a good place for family. The barbecue is fantastic. But yeah, it has, I think it's a mid-sized city that a lot of people have been convinced is a much larger city than it is.
But you approve? You like Austin?
I approve. I'm going to approve of it.
Okay. All right. Next exercise. Sell me this pen.
I've got a contract and it's for $1 million. I have it right here. And all you need to do is sign it.
Well, what do I sign it with?
You need to sign it with a pen.
Okay. Give me the pen.
Would you like one?
I would love one. Yeah. I'm so interested in $1 million. This is good. I like it. Again, the key to the lock. What is your favorite campaign that you've worked on in your career?
I have so many favorites. I love the problem solving of advertising. So, there's ones that have been wildly successful. There's been ones that are just very personal. I think they're cool. They've solved less visible problems or problems that are less flashy. My all-time favorite thing I did was for Got Milk. I did these bus shelters in San Francisco that we made to smell like chocolate chip cookies. And that was it. Just said got milk. It smelled like chocolate chip cookies. We thought it would be this fun, quirky little stunt. And we go into the office the next day, and Jeff Goodby calls us down to his office, and he says, "Hey, NPR is going to be here in about an hour. They want to interview us about these bus shelters." We did the interview. We walked down to the bus shelters afterwards. There's press trucks lining the blocks. There's all these cameramen fighting each other for angles, all to take photos of this bus shelter and the people there smelling this chocolate chip cookie scents. And then it ended up getting taken down, which caused this whole other uproar of all the news saying, like, should they have taken it down? Should they have not taken it down? And that sort of kicked up all the media again. So it cost, I think in the end, including media, I think it cost about $40,000, and it got millions and millions of dollars in coverage around the world. Yeah.
Wow. Such a great campaign with so many arms and legs. Got milk.
Yeah.
And what about I Wish I Did This? Your favorite campaign that you didn't work on?
There's a line that I wish I wrote, and it's for Postmates, and it's when all you can burgers is think about.
That's good.
It's so good, and I can't stop thinking about that line.
That works on so many levels, and it really fits your style too, right? Because it is that wabi sabi. It's like taking something normal and messing it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So we ask everyone to walk us through their go-to recipe in cookbook level detail. What recipe do you love to cook, and can you share with us?
I can. So I was born in Hungary. My parents are Hungarian, and there's just a lot of like national cuisine, and it's just in your blood a little bit. So this recipe is going to have a lot of until it's enough or until it smells right, things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make a traditional Hungarian paprika szirka. This is like family recipes, so everyone's is varied a little bit. I'll give you the correct one. So you take an onion, chop it up. It has to be half an onion per pound of chicken. So you chop it up, throw it in the pan, heat it up until it sort of turns glassy, and then you want to pour paprika on it. You want to add the right amount. If you don't know what the right amount is, that's you need to.
You're not Hungarian enough.
You're not Hungarian. Doesn't matter. You'll know. And then once it starts smelling right, you have to let it heat for a few seconds. Then you add the chicken.
Sweet paprika or smoked paprika?
Sweet Hungarian paprika, and usually throw in a little bit of the spicy just to give it a little kick. And then you want to cover it in water or broth if you don't have like a super flavorful chicken. And then you take half a tomato, half of a green bell pepper, and you salt it. And you can add like a half a bay leaf too if you want, and then you just let it cook down until it's super super soft and delicious. And then you add some sour cream in there if you want. You can cook it with some side of dumplings.
Ooh, yeah.
Serve that up, and it is delicious.
Beautiful. And are you cooking it so long that the chicken actually kind of breaks down and becomes like braised and stewy? Or
it's stewy. It's a stew.
Okay.
Yeah. Very very stewy.
There's
like a fast version of the recipe. That's just not right. You gotta let it cook for too long.
Yeah. Hungarian slow food is what we're all about here on At Large.
Yeah.
So Thomas, where can people find you?
I am T Kemeny on anywhere you go. I have tracked it down I make sure to be an early adopter on everything, and then pretty much don't use it for a long time. So I'm a very boring person to follow on social media because, like I said, I'm very particular about the stuff I put out there.
But your book is called Junior.
My book is called Junior, Missed Opportunity. It's available on Amazon, and I'm sure you'll link to here. Yeah, Junior, Writing Your Way Ahead in Advertising. It is available on Amazon. It's in your local bookstores. It's buy local if you can, or buy it from Big Giant Micro Corporation. That's cool too. They'll deliver it quickly.
That's true, and a great book for anyone who writes, advertising or otherwise. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Thomas.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thank you for tuning in to At Large. Today's episode was produced by Sickbird Productions. Our theme song is Son of Sanford by Motion Worker. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and by email at atlargeshow.com. Follow me at SWH Norton on Instagram and Twitter, and DM me about the guests you want to hear on the show.